right, guys. So we've got a very interesting person coming along and wants to be interviewed. As you know, I've grown my LinkedIn following to 29,000 followers, and people know I'm a bit of a storyteller. I've got a bit of a voice in crypto, and it's great working with great people like Stan to tell us about their project called Aave. And one of the things I like to do, you know who I am. I think a lot of my audience know who I am. I like to educate people about the good projects that are trying to make a change in this space, that they're trying to share knowledge and really try to give us an understanding of what these guys are doing in the crypto space, which is so fundamentally important when it comes to cryptocurrency and blockchain technology. So it's an absolute privilege, to get underway with this interview. A little bit, that's enough about me, but I just want to say, as you know, it's not financial advice, it's not investment advice. This is just purely an educational video interview to share to people and learn about what these guys are doing in this space. So Stan, welcome to the interview. It's great to have you on board.
Yeah, thanks, Desiree. Thanks, man, for having me here. And it's always interesting to talk with you.
For sure. And one of the things I like to do in this space, as I've got a bit of a big voice in this on LinkedIn, with the huge following I have, is try and be active and try and spread good education, good knowledge about some of the good projects that are doing good things in the space. Because as we know, last year was a bit of a topsy-turvy year for everyone, and it's very important to discounter the scams and people who are bad actors and try and share a bit more knowledge and education about the good projects. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me about yourself and how you got this project Aave on board, and what problems are you trying to solve?
Yeah, basically it's an interesting story. We started back in 2016 just as a research project back in Finland, Helsinki, where I'm coming from, and basically in my faculty of law, just basically researching smart contracts and how they could solve legal problems, and kind of like what we understood back then is that actually there's a lot of financial kind of agreements that you could do on smart contracts and reduce the need of trust, and that could be very beneficial to certain extent.
Totally agree.
Yeah, and one thing to add another, and basically we came up with the from Aave, from the first project, which is lending based, and the second project, which is more about payments. So, and here we are now, basically in London, Shoreditch, and half of the team is in
amazing. You're in London, just round the neck of the woods from me, not too far from me. So we're both in London doing this interview, guys, and let's go on board. Like, tell me, in a most easiest fashion, because a lot of people are still trying to learn what blockchain technology is. The masses are still trying to grasp what the terminology means. What are you guys doing in this space? What is Aave doing? What can I share to my 29,000 followers on LinkedIn? What is it you guys are doing?
So basically there's two things that we do. We basically let users, basically cryptocurrency holders, to spend their cryptocurrency. So that's one thing. So basically creating the usability. So most of the guys in the space, users and cryptocurrency holders, are particularly holding because of the speculative nature, but also because there isn't much that you can do with cryptos with the volatility. And we have basically one product, which is Aave Pay, which allows cryptocurrency holders to pay their goods and services, for example, electricity bills, rents, with different
kinds of. That's a good idea.
Yeah. And secondly, what we are trying to do is these guys who actually hold cryptocurrencies, instead of always selling them, we can basically grant loans against their crypto. So kind of like a peer-to-peer fashion marketplace where you can place your digital assets and borrow, pay bills without forcing you to sell your assets basically on the downside markets. So that's kind of like where we started from. And with why we use blockchain is very fundamental, because we want to provide security, more secure application in this market and decentralized. So that's kind of the most simplest way. There's nothing special about it. For
Yeah.
us, it's more about kind of
Adoption.
technological improvement on our offerings.
So basically, in a bit of a nutshell, you're trying to pay crypto to offer, loans to businesses that need it, and so forth, and really help sort of adopt this process. Is that how you kind of see it?
Yeah, well, basically, the thing is, there's our lending model is crypto-backed loans. So let's say if we have a user who holds let's say let's say 10,000 worth of Ethereum, for example, and the person doesn't want to sell. Maybe he bought when the price was double than it is today, but maybe he has bills or he has a holiday that he wants to pay now. But for example, he's low on fiat, and basically he has this crypto asset. So what we call basically cash for crypto rich person. And basically what we are doing is we are creating a marketplace where this kind of person can borrow against those cryptographic assets. So let's say if you have 10,000 worth of Ethereum, you could borrow, for example, 5,000 pounds or euros or dollars, and basically return it on a monthly basis or within a year. So that's kind of like a way to help people to kind of not sell their assets when the market is down. So I think it's more about kind of like a cash flow capital for cryptocurrency companies, for example, who have a lot of Ether or a lot of other digital assets or cryptos, and also basically those people who have invested and are holding cryptocurrencies. But in Pay, which is much more simple application, the idea is just basically that anyone who holds, for example, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and other popular cryptocurrencies, for example, our own native token, basically can actually use that token. So basically, the only requirement is that the bill you are paying has an IBAN number, which is the international bank account number.
Right.
And basically you set the number, the amount you want to pay, and you can even send the reference number. For example, if you have an electricity bill and you want to basically the electricity company know that you paid the bill, and basically you initiate the transaction and we tell you how much you need to deposit Bitcoin. Once we receive that deposit, basically we initiate the transaction paid. So it's that simple. And if the whole idea is that basically we get more kind of adoption in cryptos by you.
So it's more like adoption, more like trying to get people to use crypto in that sense.
Exactly. So I think it's a very powerful product. It's very simple, but it's in a powerful in a way that actually the idea is that people can not just go into cryptocurrency exposure, but also go out of it. And if we have more this kind of like organic actual usage, the speculative part becomes more and more meaningless, which basically provides the very fundamental idea that actually the cryptocurrencies are meant to be used as a peer-to-peer digital anonymous, pseudonymous money. And that is what kind of it's all about. If people start to use it instead of speculating, we actually have something that is equally good and better than the national currencies and completely decent.
So okay. So to break it down, you're providing that service. So my next question is, what problem are you trying to solve in this area?
Yeah, one of the interesting things is that, for example, if you want to pay with cryptocurrencies, right? For example, you get, for example, you want to pay your rent, you want to pay your bills, or other products and services. So the first thing is that basically you can't do it by default. For example, your landlord might not accept Bitcoin. For example, your electricity company, British Gas, for example, does probably not accept Bitcoin at this particular stage.
No, but it's coming. I'm sure the adoption's coming.
Exactly. So what we are actually doing for this kind of scenario is that we have here a cryptocurrency user, and here a entity which is in fiat forward, and this person has crypto, and this person or entity has basically or needs actually fiat. So we allow this person to pay with crypto and this person receive fiat, and that's the simplest thing we're doing, and helping people to meet the gap without going all the hurdles of, for example, to exchanges, paying all the fees, withdrawing, waiting 3 days, and then paying whatever they want to pay.
So in the simplest nutshell, what is it you're trying to share to in this interview so people can understand what you guys are doing Could you just elaborate more in terms of breaking down the steps so then we can understand it from an educational point of view?
Yeah, I think for educational and kind of fundamental purpose, I think what is the message for this
Yeah.
interview?
What is the message? Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically that people needs to start to use cryptos. So, I mean, if you're not using cryptos, if you're just speculating, we're holding. Of course, like holding is kind of very important if you look at the
If you
communities.
believe in the long term, yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But if you don't go to the next level or next step, which is basically actually using those holdings and actually starting to use them in an economic way, and basically the adoption of these cryptocurrencies will not go further unless, I mean, we cannot have an economy where people are just holding them without actually using them, because the usage is the actual the purpose of actually the for example Bitcoin and multiple other cryptocurrencies. So I think the message is basically, if you're a cryptocurrency holder or want to become, start also thinking about how you could actually use the cryptocurrency and how that could affect in the whole community.
That's a brilliant answer. So it really, truly speaking, it's about, adoption, trying to get more people to use Aave, use the token, and you're kind of solving some fundamental, flaws, like paying your rent with cryptocurrency. I think that could be an issue where it might start to evolve over time. Would you agree? I mean, would you see certain use cases where your token could fundamentally resolve those problems when it comes to sort of paying your rent or taking out a bank loan? Do you see yourself a leader in this area?
I think the interesting question, because I think we're very early, so that's very good. I mean, Aave, as a kind of like market participant, is super early with the crypto payments, and I think what we are trying to do is to actually not just allow, for example, payments, for example, like BitPay, that basically you can accept cryptocurrency from other people, but actually trying to connect the fiat board, the banking board, and actually basically all participants, family members basically receive payments from who actually hold cryptocurrencies and want. So I think in that
we lost you a little bit there. Yeah.
Pioneer now.
Right.
So basically, I think we're yeah. So we're pretty pioneers in this stage because we're quite early and we're trying to connect the crypto and fiat world.
Right. Okay. So that's a pretty cool understanding and overview of what Aave is doing. So I hope to my audience we've broken down those steps for you guys, so you can then fundamentally understand what Aave is doing, and also look into their website of what these guys are doing in terms of the crypto space. So I hope that answered your questions in a more enthusiastic way, but also from an educational point of way. What is it, you're trying to do in this space? What is your competition like? What's your barriers of entry? What is the overall aspect in terms of, you want to basically, the world's going to be tokenized maybe in less than 5 years' time. Already, people are starting to look at ways to tokenize gaming, music, real estate, automobile, everything, right? So where do you fit into this in terms of, leading in this space, and what is your competition like?
Yeah, I would try. Yeah, interesting. I would say from competition's perspective, I think, for example, we have payment processors who
like doing right is a competition. You would say.
Yeah, I would say the biggest challenger for us. I would not say challenger because we're the challenger here. So basically, I would say BitPay, because they do crypto to crypto payments and they're very extensive on it. So what we are trying to do is go more between the actual kind of traditional banking world and fiat world to crypto worlds, and kind of like operate in this level. And I think the whole tokenization of assets and will be very interesting for us, because if we are able to actually go into a stage where every kind of property can be tokenized, let's say property in London, for example, property in New York, or for example, cars, airplanes, and basically intellectual property. And if we could be in the middle for actually initiating transactions and payments, I mean, if you could actually pay in the future even bills, for example, services, with property, with something that you actually own, that becomes in some way kind of like a barter economy, but also simplifies a lot of things. Of course, the issue is that, for example, if you look at current cryptocurrencies and tokens, they do have a spot market, and they do have a market, but still I'm saying that tokenized assets will have marketplace, for example, but the spot marketplace, I'm not sure how that will form, but it might be so that the tokenization will bring actual spot price, so we can actually know how much a car costs, certain model, certain property in certain district with certain amount of square meters, for example.
So where does Aave fit into all this? What is your actual model? You said you're tapping into the banking world. Try and make it a little bit more so understanding for the audience in terms of, trying to get the basics right here. What is it that you're trying to do in terms of your sector and your market capitalization? What is it that you're trying to gather in this market?
Yeah, basically, I think in this particular market, I think our goal is to have as much as possible different assets that could be used as a payment. So, I mean, if you own a certain amount of different assets, because I think in the future we might have cryptocurrency holders that own, for example, 40, 50 different digital assets, and if those all could be used as a payment method, or even if you could pay with a CryptoKitty in the future, with a ERC-721 non-fungible token, I mean, we are in the actual right direction, because we are just kind of connecting the person who needs different currency and a person who actually wants to pay with a different currency, because eventually another currency, whether you're paying with the non-fungible token or a cryptocurrency, it's the same as back in the days. You could pay with cows, you could pay, for example, with leather. And in the same way, we want to be in the middle to settle these transactions and make sure that basically the recipient gets what he needs, and the sender basically, the payer can pay whatever they have in possession. So if you can connect these guys and make sure that they have what they will receive, what they want, I think we're pretty happy, and they are pretty happy.
I think that's quite important. I mean, but like I want to know is, what is the retail? What are you doing for the retail customer? I mean, we talk about, banking and the private institutions and how you're trying to, gather market momentum there. What is it that Aave is doing in terms of for the retail customer, for basically to adopt your coin and basically make it liquid? How is Aave trying to target retail customers in this area?
So basically, it's pretty simple. Basically, if you look at our roadmap now, so basically what you can do is go from cryptocurrencies to fiat. So you can basically pay goods and services.
Right.
So what we want to implement is basically that not just actually going out of cryptocurrency, you could easily go in. So we're looking ways that you could much as easiest solution as possible to actually go from, let's say, pounds or euros USD and much easiest ways possible, for example, to crypto exposure and back and forth. So kind of like in one way we want more adoption to the crypto world. We want to bring on board more people here, but we also want the people that are the cryptocurrency holders actually also use that currency and go back. When we have these back and forth movements, we actually create a stable cryptocurrency. And
I think that's a big case for a lot of crypto assets, is the usability and making sure that it's liquidity and people are using it. Would you kind of agree with what your token is doing, that it's important that people start to use these digital assets rather than speculate, sort of thing?
Yeah, definitely. And I say, for example, in terms of our native asset, I think one of the things that we have in our lending platform, for example, in the end, basically that it allows you to get loans in a zero fee manner. So basically, I would say that more and more people are using it, and I would say that definitely the more usage there is, as with any assets, the less speculation there is. And when we get rid of this kind of like big speculative kind of form of holding cryptocurrencies, I think, and going more to the usage, that will solve a lot of issues. And it's the same with any kind of assets or currency.
Basically, before we go and talk about quickly your roadmap and what's going ahead, just break down in the basic, so then we could then understand. I mean, hopefully the guys that are watching this video interview and really tuning into to understand what Aave is doing. And guys, I hope you're enjoying to learn all about what these guys are doing. Tell my audience, the people watching, is what is the number one thing you're trying to do in terms of putting our head around this and trying to learn and educate how you guys are trying to make a change in this space?
I think one thing is basically first to recognize, are you new to crypto, or basically are you already in the system? And I would say if you are basically new to cryptos, I would more or less research on what is the fundamental idea of cryptocurrency, like why not just holding cryptos because everyone is holding and kind of like
because everyone can be holding and there's no use case for it, no one's using it.
Exactly, and looking for like what is the purpose, like what is the like a goal in the cryptocurrencies before going into this exposure. And for the guys who
fit into that, in that goal sort of thing.
I think it's all about, in our case, is to, of course, educate the user. We basically want to show sources and communications on where to find information. For example, we have 60,000 members in our Telegram group. So basically, if you have any kind of questions, you can come there and ask more questions. You can come to aave.com and enter to our Telegram from there as well. It's much easier than actually going all the links and so forth. And there will be a lot of information for you available, and we make that for you available. And if you are already in cryptocurrency exposure, you need to question as well that why are you holding it? Why aren't you using it? And if you want, how you could use, I mean, what would be the ways to use it? And maybe Aave Pay could be one of the ways that helps you, for example, in your cryptocurrency usage.
I think a lot of guys who are watching this video interview will probably agree that a lot of crypto assets won't make it. They're outright scams and they're not used. And we need more people kind of using these assets for real utility and real purpose. So I think you kind of hit it on the head there in terms of how you guys are moving forward in this area, and you really care about the education and basically people using it. And I think a lot of people would agree to this about what you kind of said. So breaking it down, my final question is, what does the roadmap look like in 6 months' time? What's the case in terms of your growth and what is going on behind the scenes with Aave?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So basically what we are now doing is like, in terms of development, we have done a lot of things now. We're in good position. So what we are doing now is going a bit more slower in terms of like how we are doing things. And we're trying to think like, what is the most important things for the user? Like, how do we reach more users? What are the right channels, for example? And I think in terms of roadmap now in Aave Pay, we basically have the possibility to go out of cryptocurrency and pay bills. And now we're implementing for the next 6 months, going from fiat to cryptocurrencies. So that's the number one thing that we are working in Aave. And one of the other things is the API, but that's basically to make availability for example, wallets and other service providers to implement the ways for their users to actually pay bills with cryptocurrency.
And do you have any partners on board in terms of the growth of Aave and what you guys are doing? Because it's quite important to show that.
Yes. Yeah, basically we have now 7 partners that will integrate our API, and we're going to announce pretty much within the next 6 months. And in terms of Etland, it's pretty straightforward. What we want to do now, we have a possibility for a borrower to create a loan request and ask funds with their own terms. And we have lenders the possibility to actually put loan offers for the borrowers with their own terms. And now we want to create, we're researching for liquidity pools, so where lenders can just park some funds and basically get revenue for lending it out. And borrowers can, with one click, just borrow from that particular liquidity pools. And from the user experience, we want to package all our products under Aave and basically have a kind of one entry application where basically a user can come there, pay bills, take a loan, and hold their cryptocurrencies. So that's what we are now aiming to basically serve our own user base and looking what kind of features they might need in the future.
Maybe we could do a follow-up and see how in the next couple of weeks or a month or two, how your user base is going and how your growth is sort of going in those terms.
Definitely. I think we should basically say that from 6 months from now, we should basically talk.
I think so too, because I think the way you're going is looks like a big roadmap ahead, and you definitely care about people and especially people using your digital asset. Would you agree?
Definitely, 100%.
So my final question is, what's the big picture? You know what I like to understand what is the big picture. Telling my audience I've done a lot of these great interviews, and like I say, this is not financial advice. This is just purely an educational video interview to tell people about what I was doing. What is the big picture, man? I mean, what is the big picture?
Big picture is looking at the current way that we are using money and for information. So basically, what I think is today, the way we are using funds or using different services, whatever it's basically banking, digital banking, I think we are not exploiting what we could do. So basically, I think what the future holds is that actually the users are more and more in control what they're doing, and basically they're getting services that they haven't got before. And I think at some point banks will kind of follow the path because they don't want to be left aside. And they are, of course, quite big, and it's not easy to them to manage and to change, but the change will come, I think.
It's kind of like a race in some sense. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would say a very quick speed race.
Here you go, guys. So it's an absolute privilege to interview Stani from Aave. You know, he's doing great things in the space. I hope you enjoyed the video interview. It was very educational, I would say. A lot of questions were thrown at him, and he answered them quite well. So it's great to get that on board, and hopefully we can revisit and understand the developments and future prosperity with this great project. Is there anything final you'd like to say in terms of, telling my audience? I hope the audience enjoyed it as well. I hope you enjoyed listening and learning about some of these interviews I do. I'm quite passionate in the area, so you all know who I am and how I try to spread good knowledge. Is there anything final you'd like to say and where we can find you?
I think one of the things is if you have any bills on the table, just use your cryptocurrency and go to pay.aave.com and try it. I mean, that's what we don't do much marketing, but I think what we believe, if people like the product and basically it's easy to use, and it's
there you go. So to pay your bills with cryptocurrency, that looks like the way the future is holding. Maybe when you get your gas bill, you see the picture of Bitcoin, and so forth, and on it. So, all right, guys, this is an absolute wrap. I hope you enjoyed the video interview. It's great to have these guys on board, and hopefully we'll revisit in a few months' time. Peace, much love, and respect. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.